China's official news agency Xinhua immediately tried to assure Asian countries about the defense budget. It said, quote, Beijing has steadfastly committed itself to peaceful development and its defense policy is defensive in nature. Xinhua also went on to say China needed a robust military to deter the real menaces to regional security. First, Southeast Asian countries claiming parts of the South China Sea, who Xinhua said, quote, are emboldened by the United States' so-called rebalancing to the Asia-Pacific. And as for the second menace, Xinhua pointed to, and again I quote, the resurgence of Japanese radical nationalism. China is also going to spend more on domestic security, but it's not clear how much. The announced budget is $33 billion, but that figure is for the central government only. It does not include provincial and local spending on police. Last year, the entire domestic security budget was an eye-popping $130 billion. Yes, billion. That's more than national defense. The police budget comes a few days after a horrific attack on the train station in the southwest city of Kunming. 8 knife-wielding men rampaged through the station, slashing and stabbing travelers. 29 people were killed, more than 140 wounded. LinkAsia's Beijing correspondent Mark Dreyer joins us now for the latest on this. Mark, how have people dealt with this horrific attack online?
Well, of course, there was a huge amount of sympathy from all sides, with some people referring to this as China's 9/11. But there was also a lot of anger. Well-known liberal intellectual Luo Changping had this to say: no matter who, for whatever reason or of what ethnicity, chose a place as crowded as a train station and targeted innocent people, they are evil and they should go to hell. Another comment that was actually written last year after a man set fire to a bus killing 47 people was still relevant and saw thousands of reposts. Repeat this with me: I oppose all terrorist attacks targeted at civilians. No matter how much you've suffered or how lofty your motives are, the only thing that needs to be done is to punish with no mercy. The reason that was getting so much play was that Han, one of China's most famous bloggers, had forwarded it, adding these comments: terrorist attacks directed at innocent people must be punished, but I also wish that we don't place our hatred on an entire ethnicity or an entire religion. The attackers were thought to be Uyghurs from Xinjiang in the far west of China. This person agreed, but for different reasons. The goal of the terrorists is to create separation. If we treat all Muslims or all Uyghurs as criminals, then the terrorists are successful. Despite these more measured responses, there was a lot of invective directed towards people from Xinjiang who are already not that popular in many other parts of China. One Xinjiang native had this to say: the cold blade from a cruel terrorist offsets the smiles of thousands of kind Uyghur people. But perhaps the strongest comments were reserved for the West, due to their use, or rather non-use, of the word terrorist. Firstly, the US Embassy's Weibo account was bombarded by more than 50,000 angry comments after it denounced what it termed a senseless act of violence. It's a phrase used by the Obama administration many times, but when translated into Chinese, doesn't quite have the same force of an act of terror. Many thought that this meant the US sympathized with the attackers, such as this man who wrote, if the Kunming attack was a horrific, senseless act of violence, then the 9/11 attack in New York City would be a regrettable traffic accident. That then led into a wider discussion about the double standards that many in China felt the Western media, including the New York Times, CNN, Reuters and the BBC, were employing. As is often the case, state media here led the charge, but their views found a lot of support online. The official People's Daily highlighted what it said was an intentional downplaying of the violence and sympathy towards the assailants. China sympathized with the September 11 terrorist attack, it wrote, but some American media harbored double standards regarding the Kunming terrorist attack. Why? The Liberation Daily went even further, quoting one expert who said, now